We're in Psalm 21, and we're going to look at a really special verse today. Psalm 20, we finished this earlier this week, and we talked about the prayer of the people for the king who's going into battle on their behalf to secure their salvation. So in many ways, a view of the gospel. Chapter 21 is the post-battle view. So the celebration, the joy that the king has in God's strength, in God's victory that's been granted, how and in thy salvation, how greatly shall he rejoice. So the joy that comes into our lives when we realize the great lengths that God has gone to call us his own and to save us. Now, he's carrying us through turbulent times. He's carrying us through tribulation and trial and distress, but he's bringing us home, okay? And we know we are his, and he has secured our future, and he has secured our hope, and that's just about as good as it gets. But in between here and there, he blesses us. He grants us his blessings, his goodness, his presence, his favor. He shows us his love, and he does really wonderful things for us. And that's what verse 2 says. Thou hast given him his heart's desire. Now, this is talking about the king that went off to battle. So in one view, this is Jesus having his joy fulfilled, and that victory is won, and he's able to redeem his church, his bride, and the joy that was set before him is fulfilled. But in another sense, every day we've said we ride into battle. We go into battle. God sends us, brings us, takes us into battle, and we trust in his strength. We hope in his provision. We know he's with us. We know he's sustaining us. We go courageously. We go not in our own strength. We are weak, but we know that he's going to be strong. So we joy in his strength, verse 1. And we know that God will give us our heart's desire. Thou hast given him his heart's desire, hast not withholden the request of his lips. Selah. So here's what I love. So many things I love about this verse. But God is a creator of desires. He puts us on this planet with desires, with needs that really he alone ultimately and eternally can fulfill. He gives us foretastes, or he gives us samplings, or he gives us gifts that help to fulfill our desires. For instance, my wife is a gift that helps to fulfill desires that God put in me, but really he's the one that gave her to me, so he's the ultimate fulfiller of those desires. If I were to lose her, I still have him. And that's how it goes in all of our desires in life. God gave us our good desires. Now, Satan wants us to pervert those desires. He wants us to idolize those desires. He wants us to fulfill those desires prematurely or with faulty fulfillment. He wants us to cheat on God's original good plan, or he wants us to chase those desires in place of God, again, idolize them, and he wants to skew and pervert them, and he wants those desires to lead us around. He wants us to be lorded or led by our desires in ways that will only harm us. See, desires are gifts from God unless they're misappropriated, and then they're self-destructive. And so what desires has God given you? Is it a good desire? Is it a God-honoring desire? Is it finding its proper order in your life under his headship, under his leadership? Notice the order, okay? God is the strength. God is the giver of salvation. God is the giver of desire in these verses, and he's the fulfiller of desire. So God is in the premier, the supreme, preeminent place. And as long as God is first in my life, as long as he is truly God and not my desires, then I can follow my desires that are good, that are God-honoring, that are properly ordered, my affections properly ordered, my first affection being set on those things which are above, okay? But then properly ordered affections, properly ordered desires as gifts from him. Now, here's what's going to happen. If God is truly God in my life, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. So the first thing that God does is he shapes the desires. He can take away errant desires. He can put in. It's like taking away software and putting in new software on the hard drive of my heart. He can change, reshape those desires. inevitably we take desires, we kind of hijack them, and we set our sights on things we think will fulfill our desires. And then when they don't fulfill our desires, we're disappointed. Maybe we're disappointed in God when really it wasn't even his fault. We began to try to fulfill God-given desires through ways that were not God-given. He will change and morph. He will mature those desires. He will, ultimately though, he will fulfill them. So God-given desires fulfilled in God's time, in God's way, are absolutely the most enrapturing, fulfilling gifts from God's heart. Okay? So he creates the desire. He takes us on the journey of cultivating and enjoying the anticipation of that desire. He matures it. He shapes it. He gets us ready for it. He prepares us for it. And then in his time and in his way, in a way that usually blows our mind, in a way that usually felt like we were going way off course, felt like we were even losing the desire. When we choose him over our desires, he takes those desires and he cultivates and matures and develops us and prepares. And then at the right time, it's like he pulls the curtains back. And it's like he gives us, he shows us what he's prepared us for. And sometimes he fulfills desires we don't even know that we had. He fulfills them in ways we didn't know would be so joyful. His timing is always perfect. So, thou hast given him his heart's desire. Maybe not when we want, maybe not how we want, maybe not the way we expected, but always better than we imagined, and always in his time, when it's the right time, in the right way. He will not withhold the requests, the good requests of our lips. Now, just because God isn't answering you immediately doesn't mean he isn't going to answer you. Just because you don't have the answer yet doesn't mean he isn't in process of preparing you for the answer and preparing the answer for you. And God's best answers are always those that are worth waiting for. So my friend, don't follow, don't track, don't idolize, don't worship your desires. Trust God to be the fulfillment of them. Trust God with your heart. You can trust him with your heart. It's a safe trust. I have a desire that God fulfilled this week. And it's honestly, other than food and shelter and love, it would be probably the earliest desire in my youngest, most youthful recollection. From the time I was in second grade and could write and read, I remember the first trip our second grade class took out of our class to the school library. We didn't go there in first grade. Actually, I wasn't in that school in first grade, so we didn't have a library at the school I went to in first grade. So second grade, Roswell Elementary School in Roswell, Georgia, I remember journeying down the hallway to that library and finding a book by Peggy Parrish and reading that book called The Haunted House. She was a children's author, published out of New York. And I remember falling in love with reading and books, and then by virtue of that, falling in love with writing. And I remember as a second grader actually writing Peggy Parrish a letter and sending it to her publisher. What second grader does that in New York City? And telling her, when I grow up, I want to write books like you. And God's given me the opportunity. I laid that desire down for a long time. Really, all of my high school and college years, all of my young adult life, I was in my mid-30s before I really picked up a serious approach to writing. And God gave me a portion of that dream back. And I had a season of writing. And then it seemed like God said, lay it down. And so the last 3 or 4 years, I've just been focused on really helping our church and school become stronger organizations and blessing as many people as we could through those organizations and with the gospel and God's word. And I took a walk a couple of years ago and just really in struggle. It didn't seem like God was opening the door to write or publish. And I just gave that desire back to God. I said, Lord, I don't have to do this. I don't need to do this. It's really, I just want to follow you and obey you. Excuse me. So I said, Lord, if you want me to write, then open a door and show me and fulfill this desire your way. I'm not going to chase it. I'm going to chase you, and you fulfill the desire. And a couple weeks later, God opened a door that I could have never opened. He let me have a conversation with Moody Publishing out of Chicago, the ministry originally founded by D.L. Moody. And Moody Publishers is a mainline, a large publishing house. And They have a very respected name. And it was just an amazing conversation that led to a discussion, that led to a process, led to some new relationships and friendships. And God just opened that door wide. And that publisher expressed a desire not only to publish me for a book, but for many future books if God were to will it. The last year and a half I've been working on a book called But Stop Trying, Got My Copy. And it's based on a unique series, a study of gospel and God fulfills out of the desire that has just long been there under the surface. And I guess the key is, it's not like this is the first book I've written, but the key takeaway, reason I'm telling you this story is he fulfilled this one. This time he fulfilled it in a way that I just would never have expected him to. He's allowed me to write books before, but I never imagined he would connect me with a publisher like Moody and give me this kind of open door. So I share that with you to say, my friends, your heart and your desires are safe in his hands. He'll fulfill them or not. And you know what? I came to a place where even if God never fulfilled this desire, he's blessed me more than I could ever deserve. And he's enough. He's enough. So he can take away the desire. He can cultivate it. He can renew it. He can enlarge it. It's his. My heart is his. And when your heart is his and your desires are his and you are his, then you're safe. And you don't have to distress. Desire unfulfilled, it's okay. You still have the Lord. Desire fulfilled, wow, what a great God you have. Either way, you're okay. So my prayer for you is that you'll be patient on the fulfillment of his best desires in your life.